Welcome back to Solomega Machine, and right now, the noise is deafening. Since Ripple's Swell conference wrapped up, the crypto world's been hit with one of the loudest waves of FUD we've seen all year. And surprisingly, it's not coming from Bitcoin maxes this time. No, this round is coming from inside the crypto industry itself. From Solana circles, Chainlink advocates, and self-proclaimed crypto veterans who suddenly think they've got Ripple all figured out. But here's the truth. They don't even understand what they're criticizing. Let me tell you what's really happening. Every time XRP starts showing strength, whether through Ripple's global partnerships, increasing ODL volume, or regulatory clarity, a new narrative pops up trying to tear it down. You've seen it before, but this time it's different. The recent comments at the Crypto Town Hall, where Gary Cardone and others questioned XRP's value, weren't just casual opinions. They were calculated. Narratives meant to cast doubt right when confidence in XRP is building again. You notice the timing. Ripple comes out of Swell with momentum, and suddenly the same recycled FUD about XRP having no value starts circulating. And here's the thing, the people spreading it don't even realize they're contradicting themselves. One group says Ripple has no value outside of XRP. Another says XRP has no value outside of Ripple. So which is it? Because it can't be both. Either they don't understand the tech, or they're intentionally twisting facts to keep you uncertain while they accumulate quietly behind the scenes. This isn't about fanboying for Ripple. It's about basic financial logic. XRP isn't a meme coin you pump and dump. It's a utility asset designed for settlement efficiency, speed, and global liquidity. Ripple as a company builds on that, leveraging XRP for institutional level transactions. That's what most of these experts completely miss. They think Ripple is just another startup selling software, but in reality, Ripple's products are the rails, and XRP is the fuel. Without one, the other doesn't reach full potential. So, when someone says, oh, XRP doesn't give holders dividends or rewards, they're revealing they don't even understand how value acres in open financial networks. Bitcoin doesn't pay dividends. Ethereum doesn't send you a check. Yet, both have multi-billion-dollar valuations. And because value is derived from utility and demand, not corporate payouts. Now, here's what I want you to take away from this. When critics start repeating each other's talking points, it usually means they've run out of original arguments. That's exactly where we are right now. XRP's fundamentals are strong, the legal overhang is fading, and institutional confidence is growing. So naturally, misinformation fills the vacuum. We're going to unpack every piece of this FUD in today's deep dive. From who's spreading it to why it's strategically timed and how it actually signals that XRP is in a stronger position than ever. So, if you're tired of the same recycled narratives and ready for some straight truth, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and stick with me till the end, because by the time we're done, you'll see exactly how this so-called negative press might actually be one of the biggest bullish indicators for XRP we've ever had. Let's get into it. All right, let's peel this back and look at what's actually going on here. When people like Gary Cardone or a few others start echoing the line that XRP has no intrinsic value, what they're really doing, and whether they realize it or not, is exposing that they don't understand Ripple's strategy or the way institutional adoption works. Because if XRP truly had no value, the biggest financial institutions in the world wouldn't even be looking at it, let alone using Ripple's technology to move billions across borders. Let's be clear, Ripple isn't trying to win the retail crowd anymore. They're not chasing hype. They're quietly building infrastructure. The Swell conference made that obvious. You had reps from the World Bank, BlackRock CK, MasterCard, and even global regulators in attendance. You think those names show up to a useless token event? Come on. These are the people shaping the next generation of international payments. And Ripple's tech is being discussed right there in the room. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The reason you keep hearing people push the no-value narrative right after Swell isn't random. It's coordinated market psychology. Institutions don't want retail piling into utility assets before the rails go live. They want quiet accumulation, so they flood social platforms with doubt. The same thing happened with Bitcoin in 2015 and Ethereum in 2017. Both were called worthless right before they exploded, and it's the same playbook unfolding with XRP right now. Ripple's 6 new acquisitions, $500 million in strategic funding, and $40 billion company valuation aren't accidents. They're calculated moves that prepare for scaling the global liquidity network. And what drives that liquidity network? The XRP token. Period. That's the connection people pretending to analyze Ripple keeping. Ripple doesn't need to explicitly say XRP is tied to our success because the structure of their business already makes it obvious. Think of it like this. When liquidity corridors open between major fiat pairs, say USDA or USDMXN, they require a settlement asset to bridge the two. That settlement asset in Ripple's ecosystem is XRP. The more corridors Ripple activates, the more demand there will be for XRP to move real money, not speculative hype. So the next time someone says XRP has no use case, ask them to explain why banks and financial institutions are still testing, integrating, and licensing Ripple's technology. You'll notice they never answer directly. They pivot or talk about price charts instead, because the truth is, they're not arguing from knowledge. They're arguing from emotion and fear. Fear that they might have missed the window to accumulate when the market was asleep. Here's the bottom line. FUD always intensifies right before the next leg up. Every cycle, it's the same story. Disbelief, dismissal, then sudden realization. XRP is at the disbelief stage right now, but the fundamentals are too strong to ignore. Ripple's global licenses, partnerships, and institutional backing all point to one direction: mainstream integration. And if you think that won't impact price, you're not being honest with yourself. Because every time new corridors open, every time ODL volume spikes, every time another bank plugs into Ripplet, XRP becomes more essential to the plumbing of global finance. We're not guessing here. We're following the data, and the data says adoption is growing, not shrinking. So instead of listening to crypto Twitter drama, look at the movement of money, the growth of Ripple's partnerships, and the institutional behavior behind the scenes. That's where the real truth lies, and it's looking more bullish than ever. Now, here's the thing most people are missing. Ripple doesn't just survive FUD, it uses it. Every time a new wave of misinformation hits, Ripple's team somehow comes out looking stronger, more credible, and more aligned with real-world finance. You want to know why? Because while everyone else is arguing over price charts, Ripple is sitting at the table with regulators, payment networks, and global institutions designing the future of digital money. When Brad Garlinghouse stood on that swell stage and said, "Ripple has been ready for this moment," he wasn't exaggerating. This wasn't marketing, it was a signal. Ripple knows exactly where this market is heading. They've built compliance, partnerships, and infrastructure for a moment when traditional finance finally merges with blockchain rails. That's the inflection point we're walking into right now. And what's crazy is that the critics, the ones spreading the no-value narrative, are helping Ripple's positioning without realizing it. See, in finance, nothing legitimizes a project faster than resilience. When a company stands strong under pressure, when it gets attacked, scrutinized, and dissected from every angle, yet still scales partnerships and wins court cases, that's when serious money starts paying attention. Ripple's been through hell and back with the SEC case, but instead of shrinking, they expanded globally, signed banks in new regions, and grew ODL corridors. That's not weakness. That's dominance. Now let's talk numbers. Ripple's valuation at $40 billion wasn't assigned by retail traders or influencers. That number came from institutional investors, the same entities that analyze cash flow, software potential, and long-term market fit. They're not betting on hype. They're betting on utility. The more Ripple grows, the stronger XRP's network effect becomes. Every client using Ripple's rails increases demand for XRP liquidity. That's basic economics. And no amount of FUD can override that equation. But here's what really irritates me, and I know a lot of you feel this too. These so-called experts never bring data. They make emotional arguments with zero technical grounding. They'll say things like XRP has no purpose while central banks literally test CBDC infrastructure on the XRP ledger. They'll call it centralized while ignoring that it's one of the oldest, most stable decentralized networks in crypto running flawlessly for over a decade. This is where Ripple's genius comes in. They don't bother arguing back. They just keep shipping, keep signing deals, and keep scaling globally, because the truth doesn't need defending when adoption speaks for itself. You don't convince the world with tweets, you convince it with utility. Think about this. Ripple's recent partnership expansion in the Middle East and Asia isn't just another press release. These are regions actively re-engineering their banking systems around real-time settlement. You think they're testing this on Ethereum or Solana? Not a chance. They need stability, speed, and compliance. Three things the XRP ledger delivers better than anyone else. So, let's flip this perspective. FUD isn't weakness, it's confirmation. The louder it gets, the more you know something big is about to break. We saw it before the SEC case settlement, before the 2021 run-up, and we're seeing it again post-swell. The timing is too perfect to ignore. Ripple's not reacting. They're executing a long-term play that most people won't understand until it's too late. And when the financial system starts leaning on blockchain for real utility, it won't be the meme coins that benefit. It'll be the assets built for function, not hype. That's XRP. Here's the thing most retail investors never catch. Real moves don't start with noise, they start with silence. When hype cools off, when influencers stop talking, when retail attention drifts, that's when the big players position themselves. And that's exactly what's happening with XRP right now, post-swell. The headlines may have moved on, but the money hasn't. It's quietly flowing in through corridors and liquidity providers that most people won't even notice until it's too late. Look at what's happening under the surface. Ripple has been aggressively expanding its payment corridors, onboarding banks, and optimizing ODL flows in regions where regulations have already cleared the way. These are not speculative moves. They're strategic infrastructure placements designed to lock in Ripple as the default bridge between fiat and crypto liquidity. And if you understand what that means, you know this isn't a crypto project anymore, it's a financial backbone in motion. But let's get to what's really triggering this wave of FUD. It's fear. Solana, Chainlink, and others see Ripple evolving from a crypto startup into a global settlement network, and they know there's no competing with that kind of utility. Their only move left is to attack, not with facts, but with noise. And what happens every time? Ripple ignores it, executes, and XRP climbs the ranks again. The funniest part, the people saying XRP has no value are literally missing the trillion-dollar question. What happens when XRP becomes the neutral liquidity standard for cross-border settlements? You can't just replace that. Every transaction that moves through those rails burns XRP. Every bank using those corridors indirectly creates demand. The value doesn't come from some yield gimmick or airdrop, it comes from solving trillion-dollar inefficiencies the old system still struggles with daily. Now, let's talk timing. We've seen this pattern before. Ripple announces progress, the community gets excited, then the market stays quiet for a few weeks before the momentum suddenly erupts. You can almost set your watch to it. That's because institutions move on timelines, not tweets. They load positions slowly, they test liquidity, and they make sure the infrastructure is ready before the breakout. And the way volume's been consolidating lately, it's starting to look like we're right at that pre-breakout zone again. Brad Garlinghouse's confidence at swell wasn't for show. He knows what's coming. His statement, "Ripple has been ready for this moment," wasn't about a conference highlight. It was a warning shot. Ripple's groundwork is done. The pool. Partnerships are live. The corridors are active. Now all that's left is for utility demand to hit critical mass. And when it does, XRP's price won't move slowly. It'll gap up hard because liquidity-based assets don't reprick linearly. They explode once adoption catches up. So yeah, let the critics keep talking. Let the media spin whatever narrative they want. The people who actually understand this market know that price is the last thing to move. First comes infrastructure, then liquidity, and finally the revaluation. That's the sequence we're watching unfold right now. And before I wrap this up, I'll say this. I've been covering XRP long enough to know when the noise is a distraction and when it's a signal. What we're seeing right now is a signal. The end of November isn't just another date. It's shaping up to be the pivot point where the groundwork Ripple has built finally translates into visible market momentum. Now, I'm not here to Hype or promise anything unrealistic. But when every technical, fundamental, and institutional cue starts aligning like this, you don't ignore it, you pay attention. Because while everyone else is arguing over narratives, the smart money is quietly setting up for the next phase of the XRP story. Let's be honest, the loudest voices in crypto right now are often the least informed. The people yelling XRP is dead or Ripple is finished are the same ones who said the SEC case would destroy everything. How did that turn out? Ripple won clarity, institutions gained confidence, and XRP got the legal green light it needed. That wasn't just a win, it was validation that this technology is built to last. Yet, here we are again with a new wave of noise from people who either don't get the fundamentals or have their own bags to protect. What's really happening is this: the industry is transitioning. Projects that were built on hype are starting to fade, while those built on real-world use are gaining traction. Ripple isn't trying to be trendy. It's trying to replace outdated financial infrastructure that moves trillions of dollars every single day. And XRP is the fuel that keeps that engine running. That's not theory. That's architecture. If you've been watching the liquidity corridors, the ODL expansion, and the partnerships, you already know Ripple isn't slowing down. The Swell conference was just the start. Now I want you to really think about what Brad Garlinghouse said. Ripple has been ready for this moment. That wasn't about hype. That was about preparation meeting opportunity. The company has spent years building compliance frameworks, working with regulators, and quietly setting up corridors in every major financial region. When that switch flips, there's no catching up. XRP's role as a bridge asset is baked into that system, and the market will eventually have to reprick it to reflect that reality. You can already see the frustration on social media from people tied to other ecosystems. Solana, Chainlink, even Max's, they're all trying to throw shade because deep down they can feel the shift. XRP doesn't need flashy NFTs or meme hype. It has the one thing 99% of crypto lacks, a use case that solves a trillion-dollar problem. And when the utility starts scaling, there's no ceiling on what that can mean for valuation. But here's where I want to keep it grounded. None of this happens overnight. Market transitions take time. There'll be dips, fake outs, manipulation, everything designed to shake you out before the next move. The smart players aren't reacting emotionally. They're watching liquidity flow, institutional activity, and regulatory positioning. Those are the real indicators, and all three are flashing the same thing right now. XRP is positioned for something major. So while everyone else wastes energy debating on Twitter or fighting over tribal nonsense, remember this: the truth doesn't need to shout, it just needs time. Ripple has done the work, and the XRP ledger continues to prove its strength every single day. And if you've been paying attention, you can see exactly where this story is heading, a financial shift that the world won't be able to ignore much longer. Now, before I wrap up, let me be clear. This isn't financial advice. Crypto is a high-risk market, and you should always do your own research before investing in anything. My goal here is to give you perspective, not promises. Study the data, understand the fundamentals, and make decisions that fit your risk tolerance. That's it for today's deep dive. If you got value from this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because the next few weeks could be critical for XRP, and you don't want to miss what's coming. This is Journey to XRP. And as always, stay sharp, stay patient, and never stop questioning the noise because that's how you get ahead of the